The climate change debate has moved on rapidly in recent months, and when I say the term climate change debate, let's all agree on one thing, that we are not here to debate whether this problem is happening any longer. Take a look at what is happening to our planet. From the scorching hot week we had in February this year to the blistering hot summer last year, our climate is changing, even in the UK, before our very eyes. But while these ice lorry weather patterns might be a gift to some of us in the Western world with some capacity to adapt, the price we pay for them as a planet is catastrophic. And we see what is happening to our climate in the UK and its effects, namely extreme weather, both hot and cold, of the increasing frequency. We must always remember that our country is predicted by climate scientists to be one of the least affected by global climate change. Because in the year 2019, when we think about the debate climate change action, it's not simply enough to coo over David Attenborough and give ourselves a pat on the back for shining a light on what is happening to our world. As other honourable members have said, we have to act, and we have to act now. This issue, the biggest humanity has ever faced, requires us to be bold, and it requires us to do much, much more than just speak out. Indeed, Greta Thunberg puts it better than I or any other member in this House could do. To do your best is no longer good enough. We must do the seemingly impossible. But what can we do? Well, for a start, we must support the motion today. It's about acting decisively to lead the way as a catalyst for change, both here and in the UK and internationally. The magnitude of this demands cross-party consensus, and it demands we act swiftly. Taking this first step today, we must start of us taking the right path at the most precarious of crossroads. I can't speak out in this debate without putting on record how deeply disappointed I was when, on her first day in office, one of the Prime Minister's first acts was to abolish the Department of Energy and Climate Change. What message did this send to the rest of the world? It sent the message that the UK was no longer a leader on climate change, but instead was resigned to be a follower. And let's not forget that under the last Labour government, we became the first country in the world to legislate legally binding budgets in the Climate Change Act. And in a brief conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, with time limits, I want to leave honourable members, and particularly the Government, with this point. When, if the French Fire Service had known about the last month's fire at Notre Dame 10 years before it had happened, when, if we'd known about any of the terrorist atrocities across the world 10 years before they'd happened, just think what preventative action we would have taken if we'd had the level of foresight, to have known that these catastrophes and countless others a decade ahead of them were happening. Well, with climate change, we have the foresight and, crucially, the means to do something about it. The legs of the stool are there, as it were, but there's still one missing, us. And for that, all it takes for the whole thing to fall over. So when we leave this place today, we go back to talking about other important matters like no-deal cliff edges. Let's all commit to remember one thing. If you think the no-deal cliff edge is scary, it's barely in the foothills of what the climate cliff edge could look like.
Antoinette Sandberg.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it will come as